Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today? Like it. Let's do it. People of Reddit, have you ever picked up a hitchhiker? If so, what's your story? Please remember to like, share, hype, listen, and ask for shoutouts, and subscribe. Just about every time I see someone, I stop. I kind of got out of the habit in the last couple of years, moved to a big city and all that, and my girlfriend wasn't too stoked on the practice. Then, some shit happened to me that changed me, and I'm back to offering rides habitually. If you would indulge me, it's a long story, and has almost nothing to do with hitchhiking, other than happening on a road. This past year, I have had 3 instances of car trouble, a blowout on a freeway, a bunch of blown fuses, and an out-of-gas situation. All of them were driving other people's cars, which, for some reason, makes it worse on an emotional level. It makes it worse on a practical level as well, what with the fact that I carry things like a jack and extra fuses in my car, and know enough not to park facing downhill on a steep incline with less than a gallon of fuel. Anyway, each of these times this shit happened, I was disgusted with how people would not bother to help me. I spent hours on the side of the freeway waiting, watching roadside assistance vehicles blow past me for AAA to show. The 4 gas stations I asked for a gas can at told me they couldn't loan them out for my safety, but I could buy a really shitty 1-gallon one with no cap for $15. It was enough each time to make you say shit like, "This country is going to hell in a handbasket." But you know who came to my rescue all 3 times? Immigrants. Mexican immigrants. None of them spoke a lick of the language, but one of those dudes had a profound effect on me. He was the guy that stopped to help me with a blowout, with his whole family of 6 in tow. I was on the side of the road for close to 4 hours. Big Jeep, blown rear tire, had a spare but no jack. I had signs in the windows of the car, but signs that said, "Need a jack," and offered money, no dice. Right as I'm about to give up and just hitch out of there, a van pulls over, and a dude bounds out. He sizes the situation up and calls for his youngest daughter, who speaks English. He conveys, through her, that he has a jack, but it's too small for the Jeep, so we will need to brace it. He produces a saw from the van and cut a log out of a downed tree on the side of the road. We rolled it over, put his jack on top, and bam, in business. I start taking the wheel off, and if you can believe it, I broke his tire iron. It was one of those collapsible ones, and it wasn't careful, and I snapped the head I needed to clean off. No worries. He runs to his van, gives it to his wife, and she's gone in a flash. Down the road to buy a tire iron. She's back in 15 minutes. We finished the job with a little sweat and cussing. The stupid log was starting to give, and I'm a very happy man. We're both filthy and sweaty. The wife produces a large water jug for us to wash our hands in. I tried to put a 20 in the man's hand, but he wouldn't take it, so I instead gave it to his wife as quietly as I could. I thanked them up one side and down the other. I asked the little girl where they lived, thinking maybe I could send them a gift for being so awesome. She says they live in Mexico. They are here so Mommy and Daddy can pick peaches for the next few weeks. After that, they're going to pick cherries and then go back home. She asked if I had lunch, and when I told her no, she gave me a tamale from their cooler, the best tamale I ever had. So to clarify, a family that is undoubtedly poorer than you, me, and just about everyone else on that stretch of road, working on a seasonal basis, where time is money, took an hour or 2 out of their day to help some strange dude on the side of the road when people in tow trucks were just passing by me. Wow. But we aren't done yet. I thanked them again and walked back to my car and opened the foil on the tamale because I'm starving at this point. And what do I find inside? My $20 bill. I whirl around and run up to the van, and the guy rolls his window down. He sees the 20 in my hand and just shakes his head no, like he won't take it. All I can think to say is, por favor, por favor, por favor. With my hands out, dude just smiles, shakes his head, and with that look like great concentration, tries his hardest to speak to me in English. Today you, tomorrow me. He rolled up his window and drove away, his daughter waving to me in the rear view. I sat in my car, eating the best tamale of all time, and I just cried like a little girl. It's been a rough year, and nothing has broken my way. This was so out of left field I just couldn't deal. In the 5 months since, I've changed a couple of tires, given a few rides to gas stations, and once gone 50 miles out of my way to get a girl to an airport. I won't accept money. Every time I tell them the same thing when we're due. Today you, tomorrow me. TL, DR. Long rambling story about how the kindness of strangers, particularly folks from the south of the border, forced me to be more helpful on the road and in life in general. I'm sure it won't be as meaningful to anyone else, but it was seriously the highlight of my 2010. I've picked numerous hitchhikers, but one in particular stands out. His name was Garth. Garth was a hell of a dude with a hell of a story. This encounter between my friends and Garth. After graduating high school, I and 4 friends decided to take a long road trip over the summer. And Glacial National Park was our mecca for the trip. We found ourselves camping in the middle of nowhere in the woods of northwest Montana, some 25 miles north of Missoula. We camped illegally and got drunk and stoned and pretty much stayed up all night. In the morning, I woke up in the driver's seat of my car to see some dude walking by in the road, which was 40 yards away from our campsite. The guy walking couldn't see us just passing by, but I could see him. I was still half drunk, so I decided to yell at him, not even thinking that it could be the owner of the land that we were illegally camping on. He did a 180 and stared straight at me and began walking toward me. He had a single backpack and a big tree limb for a walking stick and looked exhausted and hungry. He looked like the Big Lebowski mixed with Saul from Pineapple Express, but acted like someone who had just had their ass kicked mentally and physically. He looked like someone had sucked his soul out of him. My friends had heard me yelling for him, so they had stirred awake to find, to their surprise, Garth sitting in one of our lawn chairs, eating our stale Doritos like he hadn't eaten anything in days. We would later learn that was actually true. It was about 10 a.m. by the time we decided to leave the campsite and head back to Missoula to find food. Garth hopped in the car and began to tell his story of how he ended up in the middle of nowhere, Montana. He sat shotgun and talked while my friend sat behind him, ready for Garth to try to kill us or something crazy. The story that Garth told us was crazy. It basically went something like this. Some dude he met in Missoula promised him some work on his land. Apparently, the guy bought some land and needed some trees and brush cleared so he could start building a house. He said he would let Garth stay on his land for the night and meet him there and stay on his land in the morning with some tools and some food so they could work all day to clear the brush. Well, one day went by, then another and another and another. The guy never showed up, and Garth was on this guy's land for fucking days with no food or shelter. He luckily had a stream of water on his land that Garth drank to keep hydrated, but catching food was next to impossible. He said he could hear coyotes very close to him at night, and one morning, he woke up to a bull moose 30 yards away from him, snorting and stomping its hooves on the ground, ready to charge. Garth ran up a tree and stayed there for the rest of the day. He said he didn't want to leave the land because he had no idea where he was, and he was hoping that the guy would show up to take him back to town. It wasn't until this particular morning that he said he was so hungry and cold that he thought he was going to die if he didn't start walking somewhere. Garth said he started following a logging road with the hope it would lead him somewhere. He had been walking all night with no signs of anything. He actually thought he was walking in circles. He said that the coyotes were howling and he was the most scared he's ever been in his life. We were the first sign of people he'd seen in almost 6 days. After he told us this story, we said we wanted to buy him a lunch, some beers, and a coat. He immediately declined. He seemed embarrassed by the situation, especially because some 18-year-olds were going to buy him the stuff. We understood where he was coming from, but this guy just had 6 days of hell in the woods, and he deserved a hot meal. He finally said he would eat lunch with us, so we took him to a Chinese buffet where he ate 4 fat plates like a boss. After lunch, he asked us to take him to the homeless shelter in town so he could get a shower and get a bed for the night. We agreed and took him across the town to drop him off. The car ride over was quiet, mainly because Garth dozed off, probably from his exhaustion. He was still sleeping when we got to the homeless shelter. We woke him up, and he thanked us for a million times and stumbled into my shelter. My friend and I were floored by his story. We didn't say much as we hit the road north to Glacier National Park until we noticed something on the floor in the front seat. His effing backpack. We were 40 miles north of town and didn't even think about what to do. We pulled over and turned around to take his backpack to him at the shelter. We contemplated opening it for a good 15 minutes. We thought it would be wrong and that we wouldn't want someone to do that to our pack. But our curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to open it. Garth was too epic to not find out what he had in there to aid in his wilderness adventures. We joked about what would be in there, a bloody knife, a head, some sort of body part. What we found was truly unbelievable. We found out that Garth was bipolar and diabetic based on his medications. He had some oral glucose gel to combat his low blood sugar, a blood sugar machine, and Zoloft, an antidepressant. It blew my mind that this man, a diabetic, would even think about staying in the woods for this long while knowing he was a diabetic. We also found a notebook that had some sketches and writing, mainly about his travels around the Pacific Northwest. I wanted to read more, but we had reached the shelter to return his pack. Garth was a man if I had ever met one. We thought he could use a little help, so we put $100 in his pack before we gave it back to him. He was inside sitting at a table with his pack when we arrived. I held out the pack and just said, "I think you forgot something, man." He stood up and ran over to me, grabbed it, and then gave me a huge bear hug and started crying. He told me while he was hugging me that he thought that he had just lost everything he owned after we dropped him off. It was weird, but I felt like I had to hug him back, so I did. He followed us back out to our car and thanked us again and offered us a cup of coffee. We declined and said we had to be on our way to get there before dark. He understood and even offered to take a look at our car's oil and other stuff before we headed out. We said no, said goodbye, and drove off to the other corner. We were stuck at a traffic light, and I could still see him in the rearview mirror probably 50 to 60 yards behind us. He knelt down to dig through his backpack. He took out his glucometer, his notebook, and then the $100 we had put in there. He saw it and started running after us, either to thank us or try to give it back. The light turned green and we drove off before he got to us. I stuck out the car window, gave him a wave and a peace sign. He responded with a salute and the biggest smile I've ever seen. We drove off and we never saw him again. This was our encounter with Garth, the world's manliest hobo. Wherever you are, Garth, Godspeed, my good man. Alright, so I guess I'll make this one personal today, not shoutouts. Hitchhiker story. Technically, I've had one. I was finishing up a shift bartending late at night. It's probably like 2008 or 9 or 10, I don't even know. But it was in the town that I've, bartended in for years. And it's got to be like 2:30 in the morning. And I see some dude like staggering in the middle of the street. It's a small town, so it's not like super busy. And there's not a lot of cars on the road. And I'm like, "Hey man, you all right?" And he was like, I'm like, "Do you need a ride?" And he's like, So I kind of asked where he was, and he pulled his license out and he showed me his address. And it was like 10 minutes out of the way. So I drove him there, and then he got up and started stumbling up the lawn, and I just drove away. We didn't really talk much. He was mostly passed out, but Yeah, so that's my one. I think that's the only time I ever did anything like that. But he, seemed harmless, just really drunk. So that's it. Otherwise, I hope you guys are doing well and holiday plans and the season is treating you well. See you tomorrow. My husband and I were leaving the grocery store and witnessed a big dramatic mulch theft. Yes, someone grabbed a bag of mulch, tossed it in their Jeep, and sped off, tires squealing, jumping curbs. It was confusing and hilarious. The high school clerks were mostly indifferent, but there were a couple employees freaking out and running after the Jeep. Then we turn around and there's this girl standing there with her jaw hanging open and holding a box of donuts. She just looks at us and demands, "I need a ride." I don't know why he just did that. That's my cousin. The employees who were freaking out kind of turn and start coming toward her now like the Jeep is gone, so we were like, okay, let's go. She lived like 2 miles away in the mobile home park. Sure enough, the Jeep was parked in the drive. For some reason, her cousin just totally ditched her for a $4 bag of mulch. Thanks for all the hitchhiker love on this thread. I'm a dedicated hitchhiker. I have put in thousands of miles in the US and just finished a 12,000 kilometer trip through Europe. I picked up my fair share as well. Remember, if you see a hitchhiker, try to put yourself in their shoes. Craziest story? Got picked up by a Nazi who was going to pick up his Nazi friend who had been unsuccessful at hitchhiking for 2 days from a gas station by the freeway. The guy had a big-ass walking stick with a big swastika-like shield on it. No wonder the dumbass didn't get picked up. However, the Nazis were nice to my girlfriend and me. The girlfriend is from the south of Spain, so not exactly racially pure for those efforts. In the end, the crazy Nazi with the swastika shield confessed he was in love with a black stripper, and when we got out, they gave us a beer. TLDR. Got picked up by Nazis. Everything went better than expected. They gave us a beer. Yes, terrible idea. I was driving back into town one day and saw this car on the side of the road about 30 minutes out. A little bit later, I see this guy in a business suit carrying a duffel bag, so I slowed down because I figured I was close, and it's just some dude whose car ran out of gas a little too soon. Anyway, I pull over, he throws his bag in the back of my car, and I'm like, "Hey, where are you headed?" He just glares at me and says, "Just take me into town." So I was a little nervous and pretty annoyed. And for some dumb reason, I asked him what he had in the bag, and he said, "None of your business." So the whole rest of the drive, I'm just thinking, this can't be real. Thank God it was still light out. I was getting more and more nervous. We get into town, and I stop at the first gas station because I want him out of there as soon as possible at this point. And I drive away and make it home alive. Then later, I go out to get my shit out of my car and realize the guy left his bag. I was dropping my friend off at the airport, and some middle-aged guy with luggage came up to my car and asked for money for a taxi to where his hotel was. He kinda didn't know the city's geography, and a taxi would have cost around $80. He didn't look too happy when I told him that and explained that he had just flown in from a job interview in Detroit and was in town for another job interview the following day. After hemming and hawing, I let him jump in and drove him the 40 miles to his hotel. He was apparently an engineer who, I kid you not, worked on rockets, the space shuttle, and other various flying things. He said he was on his last, and these job interviews were the last bit of hope for him. We just talked the whole time about his previous jobs and various 3D rendering software technologies. It was my first time picking up a hitchhiker, and he wasn't creepy at all. This is the sweetest hitchhiker story I've ever heard. Major props to you and your determination to help this guy. I picked up plenty of hitchhikers in my life. One I remember was a 28-ish-year-old guy who was trying to get to Madison to be a test subject for new ADD medication. They lock you up for a couple of months, regulate your diet and exercise, then give you a few grand and set you free, if the meds they're testing don't kill you. Anyway, I got him another 50 miles down the road before I had to turn south. He was nice, though. This past June, right before our wedding, my now ex-husband picked up 3 crusty kids and their dog. They were hitchhiking their way to a rainbow gathering. So he brought them home to me. We fed them and packed them goodie bags full of aspirin and hand sanitizer, along with 10 pounds of dog food, then drove them to the next state, They were a nice bunch of kids. I've also not picked up hitchhikers who I thought were suspect, but I usually go to the nearest gas station and put together a bag of water, Gatorade, and granola bars and bring it to them. Even if I think they look creepy, I still don't want them to go hungry. When I was 12 or 13, my dad and I were on our way home from somewhere a few hours away, and he decided it would be a good idea to pick a hitchhiker on the side of the interstate, holding a cardboard sign with the name of our town on it. As soon as we picked him up, it was obvious that he was homeless. He smelled terrible, and when asked where he lived, he just asked to be dropped off downtown. His name was Steps. He turned out to be very nice, down to earth, but he told us about hitchhiking all over the country and what he had seen. Before we dropped him off, we bought him some McDonald's and then never saw him again. My dad's first words when he got out of the car were, "Don't tell your mother about this." I was in the car with my brother when we picked up a hitchhiker. His name was Cameron. He was trying to get to the local bus stop to get on a bus to see his girlfriend. I think he was 18 or so. No complications whatsoever. It was a 5-minute car ride, and we just made small talk. After we dropped him off, my brother said to him, "Have a nice life." I thought it was funny at the time, but then I realized that I was never going to see that guy in my life again, which is still a ridiculous idea to me whenever I think about it.